Hello, this is Saint Jerome of Crypto Experiences, bringing you yet another crypto experience. Today is April 20th, 2022. I'm going to talk a little bit about fiat currency, about inflation, about hyperinflation, um, some historical things from the past, maybe things that we could do. Personally, there's a few things I could do, and maybe you can do some of those things too. But remember, this is not financial advice. So I start out the presentation with the picture behind me of cryptocurrency. So this is a cryptocurrency channel, and cryptocurrency is a good way to hedge against inflation. Uh, Around 2017, Bitcoin was around $1,000. Now in 2022, which is just 5 years later, Bitcoin today I think was near 41,000. Litecoin around 115 maybe or so. I remember in 2017 it was about anywhere between $8 to $12. So that was kind of when I was first getting interested in uh, in cryptocurrency, especially these two. I consider these two important. Uh, there's a lot of businesses getting in on the fact that Bitcoin is a way to preserve their wealth, and they've been getting into Bitcoin big time. So I think there's been 19 million Bitcoin mined and about 2 million to go, but it's becoming very popular now as a hedge against inflation and rising prices. So here is a picture of some hyperinflation going on, 1923 Germany, and the children are making a pyramid with stacks of rice marks. Now, the biggest rice mark I saw was 100 billion note, and it may have gone higher for all I know. But their inflation was running so far out of control at that time period that the men would get paid 4 times a day in a factory. They would get paid, say, at 10 o'clock, and they'd run to the store and buy something, and then they would get paid again at noon. They'd run to the store to buy things, and by the time they came back, the prices had doubled in just those 2 hours. And then when it happened again, like say at 2 o'clock, it had doubled again, and then it doubled again. So let's say you make $50 in 2 hours, right? Well, what your $50 would buy in that first 2 hours, then you need 100. And then in the afternoon, you need 200. And then by the day, you need 400. So very quickly, these rice marks became useless, and people were using them to start fires with. It was cheaper to burn the rice mark than it was to spend them. Um, One story I heard, I guess it's true, is that two little boys were given a wheelbarrow full of rice marks to take to the store, see if they could get anything, loaf of bread or milk or whatever. So they went into the store to see if it was possible to use their currency. And when they came back, the rice marks were on the ground, but someone had stolen their wheelbarrow. So that is runaway inflation. I'll do a couple other examples here. So speaking of the rice mark, here is a 100 billion mark note. Wow, 100 billion mark. So that's an example. And so they had wheelbarrows full of that money. They had stacks of pyramids of that money. Now, this is a fiat currency. It wasn't backed by anything. And as inflation got out of control, the government just printed more and more and more money until it got to the point where it had absolutely no value. Uh, Fiat systems where the currency is not really backed by anything of value usually go 30, 40 years. Now, America actually is a little overtime on ours, and we've been almost like 70 years going on here on our system or so. Here's a recent example of some runaway inflation. I don't know what the denomination is exactly. It's 100 or whatever it is, but those are Venezuelan notes. And that stack at the time of this picture was taken was worth $1 American. And the ironic thing is, American dollar, the Federal Reserve note, is only worth 2 cents of what it was in 1913. So we've lost 98 cents of value in our currency. Now, the misnomer on this being United States currency is the fact that it's a Federal Reserve note, and the Federal Reserve is a private bank. It's not part of the United States government, and not too many people know that. A recent example of runaway inflation, hyperinflation, was in Zimbabwe. They got up to, and this is the highest denomination I've seen, but $100 trillion note. So just absolutely worthless. I saw pictures of kids with their hands full of currency, and they might be able to buy a carton of eggs with it. So it didn't go very far, but that is the $100 trillion banknote of Zimbabwe, and it's sold a lot now as kind of a gimmick and kind of a trick, just to show the hyperinflation. eBay has these all over the place on it. This picture represents the petrodollar. The last thing we had that was going in our favor was Nixon took us off the gold standard, but Kissinger had made a deal with Saudi Arabia that all oil purchases in the world had to be made with American dollars. So with the might of our military backing us up, um, we had the reserve currency of the world. Now that is starting to fade away. Just recently, I think most people are aware that there's been some tension with Russia, and Russia has now made it that in order to buy Russian oil, you must either purchase it with rubles or gold or Bitcoin. And they have linked their ruble to gold. It was about 400, 500 grams or so of gold. Sorry, I got a little carried away with that. I think it was 1 gram of gold equaled about 400, 500 rubles or so. And 1 gram of gold at the time they started that was about worth about 60 Federal Reserve dollars or so. Some people came along and they wanted to put us back to a gold standard in the past. So in the Oval Office, you see the president sitting here with a picture of Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson was trying to put us into a sound dollar. And if you notice, the coloring of President Trump's office was in gold, and he had it redone, and he was hinting at we should go back to a gold standard. This is a cover off the I believe it was 1988 Economist magazine, and it had a picture of a phoenix rising from a burning pile of different fiat currencies, and the title said, "Get ready for a world currency." So, some people want to reset everything and go to world currency, and that world currency would be digital. We're not too far from that right now, but we have our different currencies. For example, the Federal Reserve notes of the United States. I heard today that about 98% of our currency is digital already. We don't really have that much paper money and not that much coinage. Matter of fact, nowadays banks are not very quick to pass out coins. They're telling us there's a shortage of coins. So one difference in coins and Federal Reserve notes is Federal Reserve notes are the product of the Federal Reserve Bank, where the coinage is actual product of the United States Treasury. So they're two different entities. A lot of people don't know that. Well, one solution in the past before Nixon took us off of the standard was we had a currency that was backed by silver, and we had currency that was backed by gold. Right now, it's backed by the strength of our petrodollar, by the strength of our military. But at this time, I'll move out of the way. You can see that it says gold. This certificate is legal tender for the amount thereof in payment of all debts and dues, public and private. And you could trade your bill at the bank for the amount of gold that $10 would be. Well, nowadays, that's not very much gold, probably less than one of those little flakes over there, because gold is going up to $2,000 or so now. So it's right around that. So it's been a good hedge against inflation. Silver's been a good hedge. So if you go back to 1998, when people were worried about Y2K, gold was around $230 and silver was $2 or $3. The last price I saw on the silver was, I believe, 26.31, and I know gold was approaching $2,000. So they've done a good job keeping up with inflation. So we can hedge inflation with having some gold or by having some silver. So here's an example of some more notes. In gold coin, payable to the bearer on demand, $20. This bill is from 1922. And then here's another one from 1923, ironically, when Germany was having the hyperinflation, it was $1 silver. I have come up once or twice in my recent life of a silver certificate on the bottom. Now, I believe the that's been taken away now, and you can no longer trade those in for gold or silver. They're just really just fiat themselves, but they have quite a collectible nature to them. So you should be able to get more than what's printed on the bill, and depending on how rare that bill is, you get quite a bit for it too. I'm surprised how much paper money goes for sometimes, and it doesn't have any precious metals in it. Here's my crypto buddy, Clint Westwood. You can find out more about him at his website, clintwestwood.net. Clint is an advocate of Litecoin, especially as sound money for the digital age. But he has a good illustration he does when he goes around on Friday, happy hour on Friday, and does podcasts with Litecoin Lisa Davis. And he illustrates this in the Saturday morning teaching, where he takes out $1.25 of quarters from right after 1965. And what he illustrates with that is the minimum wage at that time was $1.25. So you could have got paid in quarters, $1.25. Well, if you take those quarters now for the silver content, because that silver was 90%, those coins were 90% silver. The silver in those coins is worth about $22 or $24, I believe. So they've done a pretty good job of keeping up with inflation. So your minimum wage payment in silver is actually worth more than minimum wage now. So I see the jobs like a Taco Bell, McDonald's are going between $14 and $16 in Illinois anyway. So Clint Westwood has it right, and he has a good way to hedge it with silver. Well, as I close this podcast out, I want to quote Lindsey Williams, a pastor who spent time on the Alaskan pipeline. He was hired to kind of keep the men from getting so rowdy, and the elite, the CEOs of oil companies, were so pleased with his work that he was able to get in on their meetings. And so they talked about